All right, so got a little late last night, so we're back at it the next day, and we're gonna get this wrapped up right now. So, not exactly sure where I left off in the last segment, which is about 2 seconds ago for all of you, but anyway, the one last thing I did manage to do last night before I went home was to get most of all the stuff we're reusing cleaned up and ready to go back in. So all of our covers and getting all the gaskets off and cleaning everything, so we should be able to just kind of crank along right now. So where we're at is we got to get the lifters put in here. So first thing I'm going to do is grab this assembly lube, which is leaking all over the place. And I'm going to start to lube up the inside of the bores here. Okay, get that started. Make sure we got it all nice and coated in here. Okay. Clean up a little bit of spillage there. Just get that off the gasket seats. Okay, so now we've got our lifters, and these, we bled them down, just ran the compressor on this a couple of times yesterday, once again today. They were just sitting in the oil overnight, which doesn't really do anything. Sitting in the oil obviously won't let any air get back in there, but the notion that you can just soak these in oil overnight and the air will just sort of rise to the top doesn't really work. Some people have definitely shown some evidence of that. But anyway, what I'm going to do here is try and do this without making a mess. And I'm going to start putting these lifters in. So they're obviously filled with oil. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing over here. Hopefully it's on camera, but obviously you want these things well lubricated going in. I just like to wipe off the excess oil to try and avoid making as much of a mess as possible. All right. So we should obviously have no fitment or clearance issues. These should all drop in nice and smooth because we took the time to measure and check the clearances on these. I'll point out there's a lot of, steps and procedures to doing these installs, and, if you wanted to, you could probably skip a lot of them. You shouldn't, but people definitely do. I assume most shops hopefully are, doing it the right way, but, for people trying to do this at home, a lot of these tools are very, very specific and specialized, and they're expensive. Just thinking about the lifter bore, first thing, those precision ground balls from fueling are not cheap. I think those just by themselves are a couple $100. And then a micrometer that's capable of, being accurate that specifically. Mine's from Snap-on, so definitely expensive. You could probably find a cheaper one, but, if you're thinking you can just use your, Amazon, calipers to measure it, you're not gonna get what you're looking for. So you might go through the motions and go through the effort, but you're not gonna get the information you need. So I think a lot of people skip a lot of these steps because, well, they just sort of assume, yeah, it'll be fine, it'll be good, and just don't want to spend the money on things they're probably only going to use once. But anyway, I digress. So we got our 4 lifters in there. I'm going to grab the roll pins, which I got cleaned up already. I guess I should say anti-rotational pins is what these are. So pins sit in there, sit against the flats of the lifters, keep them from turning and spinning inside the bore. So next thing we got to do is grab new gaskets here and the lifter covers. I've got those ready to go on. I got the new gaskets, and one thing we're doing, we've got some ARP hardware. I don't know if you noticed it on the tops of the rocker boxes that already had them there. They were changed, but for the lifter covers and the cam cover, we got some ARP stainless bolts, which one are going to look nice, and two are going to replace those pretty janky and corroded screws that came out of here. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to go grab that stuff, and we'll start putting this in. All right, so with that all done, ready to start moving on to getting the rocker boxes put back together. So we got our new gasket sitting up here, and we got our lower rocker box cover all cleaned up and ready to go. So this is gonna go in. Just a little note here, I guess. These can inadvertently be installed the wrong way. You just gotta make sure that this piece right here is covering the breather channel on the top of the head. So just look at that, put it on the right way. Just like that. And then I'm gonna drop the box over the top and start getting our hardware going. So we've got original hardware for this one, and we are going to use Loctite on all of these. So I'm gonna get all these started, and then we'll get them torqued down. All right, so for what it's worth, because I almost just, well, I wasn't gonna go in that hole, but just wanna make sure that you install these bolts in the right holes. So these screws will fit into the holes where the rocker support plate is gonna go down. So if you accidentally put these in through this hole, say, this hole, or this hole, you're gonna wind up having to redo it when you go to put the rockers in. So it's 1, 2, 3. Those are the holes. Anyway, just thought I'd point that out so you don't have to accidentally go and take something out that you already put in. So let's get this back into position. All right, so there's the front. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the rear. Basically, it's the same thing. You just gotta get a little bit more creative with the wrenches and stuff, but let's go and knock that out. All right, so with our lower rockers on, our next step is to get the push rods put in. Before we do that, we gotta get a bunch of O-rings set up in here. So I've already gone ahead and put 2 new O-rings up here on the tops of the rockers. That's gonna be for your breathers. So after that, we've got push rod O-rings. So I've got 4 of the larger diameter ones, which are gonna go down in the bottom. And then 4 thick O-ring but smaller diameter are going to be for the top. Get those put up here. Yep, lost it. Okay, and then we got 4 more that go inside the pushrod tubes. I've already gone ahead and put the tubes together, so I'm going to show you what we got going on there. All right, so there's the tube reassembled, the new O-ring in there. So this is going to be our front exhaust. So that's going to come here, like that. And our front intake. Okay. Rear intake. And finally, rear exhaust. All right, with our push rods in place, I'm just gonna go ahead and seat these just to hold them a little bit more securely. And we can go ahead and start to get the rocker assemblies put back in. Now, I'm gonna start with the front. So what we wanna do is get the cam, the front cam on the base circle. So this is actually very easy to see with the push rods sitting here. You'll see them go up and down, and you'll be able to see kind of what the other side does at the same time. So the idea is base circle of the cam, top dead center on the compression stroke of the piston, but truthfully, you don't even have to worry about that because you can see it when you're on this side and you have this all open. So if this is all closed, you can check it with the piston, but we don't have to do that. What we'll see here is, we're actually almost there, and I can tell by looking at these and also by the timing marks on the cams, or the sprockets, but when you get into the right position, these will be at their lowest possible point in the travel, and as you sort of rock the wheel one way or the other, you'll see the opposite cylinders, piston or push rods, both moving at the same time. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna kind of come all the way around just so you can see what's happening. So we just went past it, and now we're coming up on it again. So you can see here, the intake valve is closing. So we're on the compression stroke, and we are right about that. That's the spot right now. There's room for error. So you can see as I move these push rods aren't moving because the heel of the cam is not just one finite point. But what you can see as we come back to top dead center is probably right about there. You can see how these, it might be a little bit hard to tell from the camera where it is, but these push rods are both moving. So this is the overlap here, and here we're on the base circle, and we are ready to install the rocker assemblies. So I'm just going to push that around a little bit more, right there. Okay, so those are their lowest position. We're ready to start getting that assembly put in. Now, I did go ahead and get that all cleaned up, and I'll show it to you here. So cleaned up, lubricated, ready to go. We've got all new parts inside the breathers. So 2 new gaskets, the little filter element, and then the one-way valve that's inside of here. So that's all in and ready to go. Before we go ahead and get this installed, I'm gonna put a little assembly lube onto the tips of the valves here. Tips of the push rods. And then I'm gonna do the same here on the corresponding parts on the rockers. And then flip this over and drop it in. All right. So that So we are almost ready to move to the rear. Now, and critically important here is because we pump these lifters up with oil, we need to make sure that they bleed down before we spin this engine over. So it's part of the reason why I don't reconnect these and then push these up right away. You want to be able to tell if you are loaded on the cam, which we are. So the valves are currently pushed open a little bit, which is why you have to flatten that down evenly, because the tension on these is opening the valves essentially. So we need to wait for the oil to bleed out of the lifters or bleed down the lifters so that the valves close, so that they're not hyperextending when we turn the motor over and either contacting each other or, more importantly, the piston, or I should say more likely the piston. But in any event, that should take usually about 20-30 minutes. So we'll give it a little bit of time, and I'll come back when we're ready to turn the motor over and come and do this exact same thing on the rear. It's gonna be even harder to see as I do this, but I'll point a couple little steps out that, just to make it a little bit easier so you don't wind up getting into it and having to take it apart, just because fitment's a little harder on the rear. But anyway, we'll get to all that as soon as this is ready to go. All right, so once again, got busy with other things, end of the day yesterday, and so wound up letting this sit overnight. Hopefully, well, I can show it to you. These spin nice and free now. They're all bled down. Didn't take that long, but nevertheless, we let it sit overnight because got busy. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the motor over, get the rear cylinder onto top dead center, get the cam lobes on the base circle, and we'll have the push rods then at their lowest point, and we can go ahead and do the same thing, installing the rocker arm assembly and breather assembly into the rear. So camera's a little bit in the way here for me, but I'm just gonna walk over here, and so I'm gonna go around a full time. So that actually right there would pretty much be it. Intake just closed. So we're gonna come back around. There's your exhaust opening, exhaust closing, intake opening, intake closing. So now we're in the compression stroke and we're coming up on top dead center. It's a little bit hard for me to see, but just keep spinning around here. And that's it right there. So that's our spot. We've got our push rods now at their lowest point. So we're gonna go ahead and do just what we did before. I'm gonna put some assembly lube onto the wear surfaces in here and get this assembly put in. Now, I'm gonna come over here and grab this assembly. Okay, so you can do this however you want to do it yourself, but it's a little difficult to get this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, these three right here, to get them in under the frame. So it's easier, at least for me, to put them in here first and work the whole thing in, and then go ahead and put the rest of the hardware in. So that's what we're gonna do. I just gotta get a little lubrication onto our valves, push rods. Same on the rockers, rocker. Oop, I'm losing it there a little bit. Okay, so with that in, grab the hardware. Camera is really in the way today. All right, so I'm gonna put this hardware through and attempt not to drip assembly lube everywhere. Put some Loctite. Sorry, I was doing that kind of off camera. That's what I was trying to avoid. All right. Well, you're just gonna have to take my word for it that I'm putting Loctite on here, because a little hard to work at this angle. Okay, now just got to work this in and just kind of get these bolts to go where they got to go. Start this way a little bit more. Okay, that one fell in the hole there. All right, there we go. All right. And we are in. Okay, bolts are in their respective holes. Push rods are lined up in the little cups in the rockers, and we're good to go. So, I'm gonna grab the rest of the hardware, and we will get rocking and rolling here. Okay, Loctite. One. Two. Okay. Let's come around to the other side and get these started. All right. So I'm just spinning these in by hand while they're loose. All right. Now, where this gets a little bit complicated is, well, not complicated, you're just gonna need a couple different wrenches to do this, and then torquing these bolts on the other side, you're gonna have to use an adapter on the torque wrench. So, see what I did with my tools here. Our goal here is, just like on the front, to get this put down evenly in the torques, and using the torque sequence to tighten these bolts a quarter turn at a time. Obviously, while they're loose, it doesn't matter, but so what we're gonna do here is get this thing to sit evenly, looking at the gaps underneath, and we're gonna get it so all the bolts are just touching, but not under any tension, and then we'll start tightening it a quarter turn at a time. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start crisscrossing and tightening a quarter turn at a time. I'm gonna try and do it all from this side just because it's better for the camera, I suppose, but be easier to do this if you just sort of walk back and forth, but it's a little faster if you do it from one side, I guess. So there's a quarter there, quarter there, quarter there, quarter there. And now we want to torque them. So we're gonna go in that same order. We're gonna have to use a dog bone adapter. I'll grab that, show you what it looks like. In order to get the torque wrench on, I'm not sure if it's both of these or just the rear one. I'm pretty sure it's just the rear one on the left side. You're not gonna get this all in there, so we're gonna use a little adapter here. You got two choices. You can either keep this thing at a right angle, 90 degrees, while you torque it down. This will have no impact on the torque readout that you're putting into this by extending the wrench. If you straighten this out like this, you are going to be applying more torque than you would think, because you've got extra leverage that the torque wrench is unaware of. So you can do one of two things, right? So you can do it this way. There's math you can do, obviously. I think it's like probably some high school trig or something like that. There's a measurement written on all these things. It tells you how long it is. It's 2 inches. So if you add 2 inches to the length of your torque wrench, it can do the math of, if it reads one thing, what will the actual torque be? Or better yet, if you want to put down, let's say 20 foot-pounds, what does it need to read on your torque wrench? So you've got those options. Truthfully, in this scenario, with the range that Harley gives for the torque and how small this is, it probably doesn't really matter that much. But typically, if we're going to use it straight, we do the math. But in this case, you could usually get in there at the 90-degree angle. It's not that difficult. So I'm going to start torquing these down. And that one actually is the first bolt we're going to do. You might be able to see me do this. You might not. But okay, there's one. All right, so doesn't fit under that one either, so no big deal. Just put our dog bone back on here and we'll get her tightened down. All right, so got that tightened down. Looks like these are already spinning freely. Those lifters have been sitting in there for like a day now, so that oil is kind of probably, some of it drained out, which is no big deal. But these are both nice and free, and so I'm just going to go ahead and finish putting in the screws for the breather assembly, and we can just keep plugging away here. With that done, we're in the home stretch here. We just have some covers to put on. So first thing I'm going to do here is, now that we've got all of our push rods confirmed that they are set correctly in there, I'm going to put the covers on the push rod tubes here. Then we're going to do the rocker box covers and cam cover, and we're just going to put all those covers on and tighten them down. Not much to talk about there. And then we are pretty much set here. So let's go. So we got these snug down, and now it's time to go at this with the torque wrenches. You can use the big one obviously over here too, but I've got the little one out, so we use that there, and then we get the dog bone back on the big one to do the other side, because even this little guy is not going to fit under this part of the frame right here. All right, with the rockers done, go ahead and get this cam cover put on. Got a new cam cover gasket here. Got our surfaces all cleaned up. Throw that on. Make sure it's nice and lined up. And I'm going to start putting these new ARP stainless screws in here. These are, I put Moly lube on all of these while I was getting them set up, so they're all ready to go. All right, well, evidently I just completely forgot to turn the camera back on and record putting the pipe and the air cleaner back on, but hopefully that's not too much missing from what we're doing here for you guys. Putting on the pipe is a little bit of a pain on these Thunderheaders, but hey, we missed it, so we're just gonna keep moving along. Pipes on, air cleaners on. Obviously I'm starting to get the tank put back on now. Just gotta get the crossover reconnected, get all our hardware on, get the console back on. And then we can just do a few more button-up things here, load a map in this thing, and see what it sounds like, which I think is what we're all waiting for. So let me keep cracking away here, and we'll make it happen. All right, so got our tank back on, everything all hooked back up, dash console back on as well. Everything's all plumbed, good to go. Went ahead and put a base map in this, got our power vision hooked up here, just something to get it started. And also, one step I did, you want to make sure you do if you're doing this, is before we put the spark plugs back in, cranked it over to get the oil pressure built up a little bit and get oil moving around, so when we start it, we don't have a bunch of empty lifters and a rattling around valve train, hopefully. So really, all that's left to do right now is start this bad boy up and see what it sounds like. And obviously, we're going to get it on the dyno at some point, but for now, this is what it's going to be. So let's give it a shot. All right, well, first startup sounds pretty good. Obviously, I don't know if you can hear it through my microphone, but even with cranking the oil pressure up, you do get a little bit of valve train noise right there at the very beginning, but that real quickly went away, so that's good. Sounds good, idles well. Obviously, we're still gonna have to get this bike on the dyno and tune it, like I said, but right now it's pretty cold out. I don't even have an outside temperature, but we're in the 40s here in New York right now, so it's probably gonna sit for a little while before we can get it on the dyno, find a warm enough day to do that, but maybe we'll come back and do another video on that. Probably not. Probably check out Instagram, which is probably where we'll post some, dyno stuff about this, but I think that's gonna wrap up this video, and hopefully gives you some sense of getting some of these parts on and some, cool little upgrades we did. This is the third round of work we've done on this bike, so pretty excited about it. I think it's pretty damn perfect at this point. So hopefully you all enjoyed it, and stick around, and we'll have the next project hopefully coming soon. Thanks.